like that, I just try to pick on the most innocent looking people. So you know I'm never going to call on long.
That's probably a good idea.
My grandpa had a funny way of talking about people. He said, never trust somebody who can look through a keyhole with both eyes at the same time. I thought I've never even met somebody who could do that. Yeah, my grandpa was an interesting guy. All right, today I am really glad you guys show up. I am really grateful because it makes this kind of interaction so much easier. And even though we're recording it and a lot of people can't make it just because I mean that's the nature of an online class, the fact that you guys are able to do this means a great deal because it makes it so that there's I can actually talk to somebody. It makes it a lot easier to present information. And then you guys also, I'm just really grateful because I noticed consistently since I started teaching that UVU has some really smart people going to the school there. And so the people that show up, I mean, you guys always ask really good questions and you make really solid observations. So I'm very grateful for that. What I would like to talk about today is a little bit more of the module. I want to show some examples that people have done in the past for this module that we're working on. I want to talk a little bit about the kits and field whatever questions people have. Excuse me. And talk about the artist research and service learning thing that's coming up. Now, first off, have all three of you guys gotten your kits? Okay. Some people found the yellow signing sheet, and other people didn't. About half of people found the white cardboard, and half the people didn't. The white cardboard was behind that bookshelf that was right to the right of where the kits were. And I think the sign up sheet got moved. I believe it was set on the counter that's to the left of the door when you're in the room looking out. Were you guys able to find the white poster board and did you find the signing sheet?
I only got the box.
You only got the box? Okay.
Yeah.
The white poster board I found, there's that bookshelf he was talking about, and then to the right of that, there's like this marble slab, and it was hidden back there. Like I had to kind of lean into the wall to see it, and the
Okay.
clipboard got moved again. As you walk in the room, you'll turn to the first right, and now it's up on the whiteboard.
Okay. All right. That's great. Then I will ask everybody, please go back to campus when you can. Now we know where the white poster board has been moved to, and now we know where the white signing sheet is. It's really important to do that next time you're on campus, if you possibly can, because that helps them to keep track of who picked up their kits and who took care of it. Thank you, Brittany. That's great. Some we've been sometimes that there hasn't been a problem. Everybody could find everything. Other times stuff gets moved just a little bit. There is a mental process that's a cognitive dissociation with unfamiliar information, where if you don't have all the information you think you need to categorize your observations, your brain will just avoid categorizing your observations. This explains why, I don't know, I grew up in a home with three brothers. None of us could find the mustard when my mom would have us grab it out of the fridge until she told us where it was. And then it would always be right in the center of the top shelf staring at us. And that's because there are some times where we literally don't see something simply because our brain isn't cataloging for it. And I think sometimes there's that, but also, like Brittany said, that the clipboard keeps getting moved around. I think it would be best if it was set like on that shelf right next to those the kits, please do your best to put it somewhere where it's completely obvious when you do go back in. And I'm sorry, a couple people have had to go back in a couple times. The poster board is important. I'm going to show a snazzy little video I made on how to photograph stuff. And it is going to be your own infinity screen for the work that you make. So I know that everybody's super excited about that. I can tell. You're just vibrating with excitement. And I am going to see if I can find where a link to that video is, because we're going to watch it today. All right. Excuse me. Before we go too much farther, I did wanted to talk a little bit. Oh, hi, Polly. I did want to talk a little bit about the research slash service learning option. Everybody has that option. You can either do a service project in the community that uses your unique skill set as a professional artist, or you can do the research thing. And if you will notice and look on the module, everybody right now has their name, hey, Nicole, as for both research and service learning options being due. I would prefer, don't do any of those things until you make up your mind as to which route you want to do, either the service learning or the research. And 2 people so far have declared which one they're doing. And so their names have been removed from the other assignments. In this case, it was both these people picked the research option. And so I removed their names from all of the parallel service learning assignments. So, as soon as you declare yourself, I'll go through, remove your name. And so you'll get half those assignments removed, which for some people is quite a relief. So please, again, do not do both the research and service learning options, and make sure that you declare which one you want to do as soon as possible. Let's see, we are going, give me just a second here. I want to pull something up. Let's see. All right, this is coming along. I've almost got it. Okay, I'm going to share my screen so you guys can see what I'm looking at. I know it sounds like I'm coughing up a lung, but it's just about 3 weeks ago, I had a little bit of a cold. And for whatever reason, now when I'm talking, I'm coughing quite a bit occasionally. The big terrible thing is that sadly I can't sing in church, which never stopped me before, but this time I can't even make sounds. Okay. All right, as we look at this is the artist research selection or service learning research. And I'm thinking I'm going to have to get rid of that word. There's no reason to have it. Anyway, as we look at this, everybody needs to do the artist research section right here. This is not the full-on artist research option. This is just, I'm going to open this up. What you're going to be doing is just learning about, this describes what you're going to be learning and how to approach this whole module. All right, this is just a read thing. It's not an assignment. We go to the next thing, which is an assignment. Here we have a list of 75 artists. It used to be that I made everybody look up each of these artists. But what you're doing now is going to each of these modules, module 1, module 2, module 3. You're going to pick 2 of these artists on that list. And what you'll be doing is just writing down, excuse me, a very simple set of notes about what the artist produced. And I wanted to show an example here. Okay, here we go. This is an example of the artist list. So notice that there's only 12 artists that they have to go to. So Slinkachu and David Oliveira should both be in that first module. Constantine Mercuzzi and Frank Gehry should both be in the second module. That's how it's supposed to work. And what I don't think that's necessarily the case on this one. Yeah, this person did not do this correctly. So they're going to have to go back through. I did not read this when I graded it. I'm going to have to bring that down just a bit until they go through and follow the directions. And it's relatively easy. You go through module 1, you pick out 2 of these 5 artists. Module 2, you pick out 2 of these. Oh, I'm sorry. No, I screwed up. It's only pick 1. Never mind. Forget that person did do a perfect job. Okay. All right. Yeah, they did it absolutely just fine. So this is great. Where they have the artist name and they put the name, probably put the name in a browser saying Slinkachu art. They found an image, put the title down, and then a short 5 to 7 word description of it. So I'm sorry. This is Julia. You did a perfect job. Same thing. And so these first several are one each from the different modules that we have. And then 7 through 12 are in the rest of that list of artists that are good to know. So again, just one artist from here. I'm sorry for the confusion. One artist from there, one artist from here, one artist out of this group, one artist from this group, one artist from this group, and then 6 more from this group of artists. So is that clear for everybody? You guys understand how to do that? Okay. Now, and this is another thing that everybody needs to interact with. And what this is talking about, when you do consider in the future, if you're not going to do it for this class, at some point, you're going to be doing something for the community. Just because most of the students at UVU going through, that is something that they actively engage with, which I think is pretty impressive. But what I'm asking you to do is think about, then this takes you to a video that talks about this in a new window. But I'm asking you to think about what is the impact and possibility of doing service as a student. And that video, we're not going to watch it right now. If I record it, it seems like a lot of the times YouTube will tag it as a copyright violation. But go to the link and watch it. What that talks about is just the process of being involved enough in the community that you find how your work can be useful. And it's called The Second Disaster. It's really sad. It goes through, it's sad, but it's hopeful too. It goes through a number of different situations, like when a hurricane hit New York, a sea storm hitting Haiti, and a couple other things where there were disasters, like a mass shooting at a school, where kind-hearted people didn't know how they could help, and they ended up sending stuff that they thought could be useful. One person is talking about a prom dress with one shoe getting sent. Another person is talking about a bag of used tea bags, because you can always make another cup of tea with a used tea bag. And people are sending so much stuff like Halloween costumes and junk like this that in Haiti, for example, they were causing a problem with rats and pollution. So the Haiti government actually had to mobilize uh, the militia to put these shipments on the beach and burn them because they couldn't store them. It was causing that much problem. Um, and and then one woman in New York got this great idea where she was seeing that people needed stuff, but nobody knew what they needed. So what she actually ended up doing is going online and setting up like a wedding registry for different families to put in what their family needed. So people around the country could go to that online, like Amazon or online Walmart or Target or something like that, go into the registry, see what a family needed, and send them exactly what the family needed. And I thought that is a really brilliant way of doing it. And there's two stories that come to my mind about this. One, I was living in Alabama at the end of the 1980s, and there were five tornadoes that tore through the city I was in. I had no idea. I was a volunteer minister. I didn't listen to the radio. I just knew it was really rainy one night. The next morning, there was just there were areas that were completely untouched, and there were other areas that were completely devastated, leveled like in a battlefield. It was astounding to me. We found out a couple weeks later that churches all around Alabama, Georgia, Mississippi, Tennessee, the states right around there, their congregations had been sending food donations, but they sent so much, nobody knew how to take care of it. And a lot more people got sick from eating the rotten food and spoiled milk that had been donated by kind hearted people than had gotten hurt in the actual storms. And I don't know that kind of thing kind of blows me away. And then I remember I was in the BYU engineering program several years ago. After I left, there were some interesting things that happened. Like every year, the school sponsors a group of students to go and find a service project somewhere. So they found this community in Western Africa that was desperately poor, and they devised uh, playground equipment for the community to use to store up energy so they could use the energy for their washing machines and other stuff at night. Can anybody see what's going on with these kinds of perspectives? The common thread is, people, kind-hearted people end up having a little bit of a savior syndrome and assume that they know what is needed. And that I'm not saying that that's necessarily a bad thing. That's just part of who we are as people. You want to help, you don't know how. But what happened is about a year and a half later, some of the students went back to check on how things were going. The men of the village had enslaved the women to use the playground equipment during the day so that they could watch the TV at night. And so, these women were walking around the merry-go-round, holding their children. The kids weren't playing on the equipment, and the women were having their kids take shifts, swinging the swings as hard as they could to generate electricity so that the men could watch TV. And I'm thinking there are also lots and lots and lots of examples where things are good. But I want everybody to watch that video because part of this process, if you do choose to do the service learning, is looking around, connecting, first taking stock of what you can produce and do as your own professional self. So you're doing something specifically tied to your own skill set and your own life experience, but finding somebody in the community that really needs somebody like you, and then finding out what they need and how they can use your skill set. And that's what's going to govern the design of whatever your service learning project is. And a couple examples have been over the years, I started doing this during COVID. And one student at the time was a professional custom skateboard maker. And they had built up a significant following on social media, and they had several companies that were sponsoring them as they were producing these custom skateboards. And so after COVID hit, she found a restaurant in her area that was going under because nobody was coming in to get their food. What she did was create a custom skateboard. She built it from scratch, designed a logo that was associated with the restaurant, and then used her social media leverage to get people in the community to be a lot more aware of what was going on. And she got these sponsors that she had been working with involved as well. And essentially using her skills as a professional artist essentially saved this restaurant and, this family owned restaurant. Somebody else, and this happens too, somebody else had been working with a group. They stopped responding, went to another group. They finally changed their mind, said, no, we can't use you. Went to a third group, and he said he had a month left in the semester, and he said, I'm not turning any of these things on time because everybody's bailing on me. And I said, so do you want to just give up and do the research thing, or we want to keep trying? He said, I'm going to try one more time. What he ended up doing was finding a person in his neighborhood who was a disabled veteran who had chickens in their backyard, and he organized the neighborhood community to build a sculptural chicken coop for this guy's chickens. That's pretty awesome. So these things are all over the world. Not all over the world, but all over the spectrum as to what people are doing, because each project is going to be completely unique.
Can I ask a question?
Sure, Polly.
So it doesn't have to be painting and drawing, right?
No, it doesn't. This is it's an opportunity. I would prefer that it would be 3D on some level, but what it is that you're assessing your own abilities, you're working with the community uh, organization that needs you, and you're providing your services as an artist uh, and person and unique individual to help them meet a need. So
One
the
more question.
restrictions are it needs to be using your skills as an artist.
Okay, thank you. And does it have to be a long project like throughout the whole semester? Or can
Sometimes
it
things,
be a smaller project or several small projects? Like I'm
um,
struggling to find something long term.
right. And in the assignment, I give an hour count, and that can be done in a number of different ways. One student last year, what she resolved doing was she ended up making a series of uh, presentations to help kids on the spectrum understand different elements of art. So one presentation was about blocks and helping the kids build something with blocks that uh, she actually made the building blocks herself and stuff too, and donated to them to the school. And she just had a series of these. So each, I don't remember exactly the overall. Every aspect of the project needs to be about 20 hours, which is about the same as what you're spending on the research element. And she was able to do that by doing several really short projects of different kinds, working with the same organization.
That makes sense. Thank you.
That's good. And then somebody else, you guys, when you do this, you've got to really watch your backs too and watch out for scope creep, because a lot of people are so excited to have somebody who wants to help them. They will um, forget that you have your own personal time and personal things that need to do. So you have to stand up for yourself a little bit sometimes too. This only happened a couple times, but one person was telling me that they volunteered to help create some set material for a community theater. And this community theater kept expanding what they wanted her to do and expected her to do until she got to a point where she told them, well, this is far beyond what we agreed with, and I can only do this much. And they parted on good terms, but it was something where the people didn't even realize that they were beginning to take advantage of her. And then another person told me her job was uh, she was creating a backdrop display for a big fundraiser for a community service organization. She designed it. She went way beyond what they expected, and it was absolutely amazing. but they kept changing the date of when the thing was supposed to happen. And she knew she could do it because she had the time. But then all of a sudden she found out it was 2 weeks earlier than they had told her. And she said, you know what, I'm just going to do this anyway. She ended up going through a whole weekend, not sleeping at all, and getting it done. So what if you're going to be doing this, it's really good. It's really important to form these kinds of relationships for your future as well. And it's a really good way to contribute your own talent to the community. But please be mindful that I'm not expecting anybody to be anybody's servant, and you should never be. You're there to be a partner and a contributor. So don't let people take advantage of you. And like I said, service organizations, 99.99% of them won't. And if it feels like they are, it's just because they don't realize it. So please, be mindful of that and be careful. But yeah, if you want to do this, the different things that I've done is I've coordinated and curated art exhibits. One of the things I did was I curated an international art exhibit when the World Parliament of Religions came to Salt Lake, and and then I also created some work specific for that as well. But then other things have been using my skill set as with the gift of gab to write grants for a group that wasn't using English as their primary language. And so it can be all over the place. For you, it's unless you have experience as an artist writing artist grants, it probably would not be a good fit. But if you are an artist that you do, like several people have done things where it's digital painting. One person works with, and she still does, but her project was working specifically with graphic designers at Salt Lake Community College and becoming a mentor, introducing them to her contacts and showing them how to present themselves professionally. So it wasn't directly creating artwork for them, but she was using her experience as a professional graphic designer to do that. Another person worked with an organization that helped kids on the spectrum and revamped all of their social media presence with new branding and everything, because that's what she did. She was another graphic artist. So like I said, these are all over the place. You can do a lot of different kinds of things, but just be mindful. We are keeping the time commitment for the project the same as the time commitment for the artist research. So they are going to be, you're not going to be working more if you choose one or the other. Does that make sense to everybody? Okay. I want to show this to you as well. So when you go to this module, the research or service learning, this is where you submit your decision, which one you're going to do. If you're going to do the artist research or the service learning. And then this one here, if you choose the artist research option, this is where you will pick your artist from that list of 75 and tell everybody about it. And if you choose the service learning option, this is a reflection that it's basically a guided brainstorming session, and you'll just share your notes. And then the work log is for everybody. But as we go down, we can look at 7B. If you're doing the artist research track, you're going to be doing the annotated bibliography. If you're doing the service learning track, you're going to be doing these two things. And notice this is 40 points, this is 20, and this is 20. The time for both of these is about the same. So the time for this one assignment is about the same as the time for these two assignments. And again, everybody fills out the work log. And you go down to 7C, same kind of thing. If you chose artist research, you're going to do the PowerPoint presentation. If you've chosen the service learning, this gives you to talk about the project. Excuse me. And then this, I've shared previous PowerPoint presentations that other people have done with this. But the PowerPoint presentations, again, are only if you select the artist research option, not if you're doing the service learning. So again, you only do one or the other. You do not do both. And then the final thoughts are artist research. You write an opinion paper. If you're doing artist research, that opinion paper is going to be 5 paragraphs long. Service learning, you have the option of doing like a 2-minute video talking about your project. So it is different, but I'm trying to do it so that the time expectation is going to be the same on both of them. Is that helpful for everybody? Does that make more sense? Okay, good. I do want to share this delightful video. I know that you guys have been excited ever since I first mentioned it. I can tell that Aaron was just shaking with excitement. But so I'm going to show this to you. This is just a short demonstration of how to photograph your work for submission. And I have really awesome music to it. I'm going to turn down. I guess the music didn't make it. Too bad. What I'm doing, this is just in my studio on the floor, and I did not have poster board. I just used a white sheet. And you notice I kind of smooth the white sheet out a little bit. This right here is just a monitor box, and you can do this over literally anything. You can set your poster board up on a couch so that it's curving, or you can set up a sheet on the couch. But anyway, you'll notice that I pulled the bottom out a little bit, so we have this kind of infinity screen setup. And these are little lights that I have. They're just tripod lights, but you can use almost any light that's a pretty good light source. Like in the past, I've taken the shades off of lamps and set them up, trying to just move them around until it looks like I get a pretty good lighting. And then this is the object, and I'm just setting it right there to take the photo. And I just took the photo with my cell phone, and I just moved the lights around a little bit to try to get rid of some of the shadows right around the thing. And that's pretty much it. So, but I want everybody to watch that to show how simple it is to set this up. The reason why to do that is that a portion of your grade is for each of these projects is how you photograph it. So it takes some time to photograph it correctly. And you saw it was not a complicated setup. It was really simple. I set it up on my floor. You can do it with a sheet or the poster board. If you cannot find the poster board, you can't get back on campus. We got them at Dollar Tree. They're $1.25, just at any Dollar Tree. The reason for this is you guys are all professional artists. You should always have respect enough in your work that you present it in the best possible light. And this is why, in that first module, we talk about lighting and different things like that. Lighting is important. I'm not asking you to be professional photographers. I do not expect you to go to a professional studio, because you can set this up and do this at home with your cell phone. And I have like an IKEA lamp. I have a couple of these little ring lights that I use. I bought at a Dollar Tree. I got a bunch of these $1.25 camp lights that are pretty bright that do the same kind of thing. All of that is good. The reason why we put the white poster board or sheet behind it is to eliminate background distraction so that your work is front and center. This is something that I need you to know about and be aware of. This first assignment, you're building a house. You're going to be trying all sorts of creative techniques of doing this. Taking photos, how you're setting that little house up, how you're getting close, getting far away, how you're going to frame it. You can use a color filter on one of them if you want. But for all the future ones, I need you to photograph this in a good enough way so that we aren't distracted by extraneous things in the image. So, for example, take a picture using the infinity screen of the poster board. Then crop it on your phone before you submit it to yourself. And then take that, convert it to a JPEG, and then submit that photo. But make sure it's right side up, make sure that it's properly cropped, make sure that it looks good so it presents your work the way you want it to be seen, the best you can. And having a sheet behind the thing that were wrinkles, but it didn't really detract from what the work was. It was just fine. And then Shireen there on campus, she's really good. She knows a lot of different AI, free AI tools that you can use to clear out the background. I've tried educating myself on those, and I just I haven't found one that speaks old man, so I don't really understand how it works yet. But if you have a relationship with Shireen, or she's teaching one of your classes, just ask her to let you know which programs she uses. And I think Pixio in Pixio is another one, and then there's several others that are just free that you can use as well. And there's even a couple filters on your phone that come automatic with your phone in the camera function that helps to clean these things up too. Look for things like consistent color and eliminating background distraction. There was one student that I had last semester that was getting frustrated because they were not getting full points on their projects, even though their projects were really good. And the reason is because they kept setting the thing either on a table, there was a wood table with a white wall behind it, or on the floor where you had that hard molding behind it, and it was just jarring to the eye, so you really couldn't focus on the image. And you'll notice in the what's it called? I'm sorry, I'm having a hard time remembering all my words today. Okay, yeah, and the criteria at the bottom, you'll see that some of this. I'll show you this really quick here. So at the bottom, there's this list of criteria and how much the points are for each one. You'll notice that on all the future projects, a significant portion of that is how well it's photographed. And again, I am not looking for professional photography. If that's what you guys were doing, you're in the wrong class. What I am looking for is infinity screen behind it, however you want to make that, and just an image that does not detract from the sculpture item that you're photographing. So when you do like the structure with skin, your hand should not be in the frame. It should just be standing up by itself. And that should be true of all your 3D work. It's standing by itself, and the photo does not detract from it. So anything white with pleats is out because the pleats would detract. But if you set your, if you use magnets to hold your poster board at the bottom of the fridge so that the bottom of it curves down towards you on the floor, and then you set your sculpture up there, that's a good way to set it up. And it's really simple. It'll take you 20 seconds. Or, 18 if you're working really fast. Okay, so does everybody appreciate that, understand what I'm talking about? Okay. I wanted to see if I could show you some of the things that other classes have turned in and give you an idea of what's good and could have been improved. And before we do this, do you guys remember what are the 4 tools of artistic critique? Does anybody remember what the first one is? It starts with a D.
Is it describe the object
Yes,
or sculpture?
Yeah, it's great. That's great. It's describe. And what I want you to also be mindful of is that these tools of artistic critique don't just apply to art. They can be applied to absolutely anything. If you're a computer programmer, if you're a nursing student, if you are a phlebotomist, I mean, it really doesn't matter. If you're pouring concrete, this will work. The first one is describe. So you either are looking at the artwork and you're describing the physical properties of the artwork, how it manifests itself into our shared world, or you're looking at a situation and the situation needs to be described, either what has gone wrong, what is going on presently, or how what the resolution needs to be. And you're not putting a lot of emotional words into it, you're just describing. And what's the next step? The next tool. It starts with A.
Analysis.
Analysis, exactly right. And this is where you start applying your imagination a little bit to extrapolate how this thing is made. What did the artist do to get those effects? How did the artist maybe make some of those choices as they were constructing this thing? And we look at a Jasper Johns target, we talk about encaustic, maybe try to describe maybe what that process is a little bit. What's the color separation? What kind of work went into creating this thing? And if that's for something else, like if you're pouring concrete, you can see pretty easily what are the parameters for the setup. How do they block it in? How do they do the framing and everything like that? What kinds of things did they did right? Did they get the water ratio correct? Those kinds of things are important because then you can use that way of thinking to engage yourself a little bit more with the thing itself and maybe get an insight into what was going on, but also understanding a little bit more about the thing itself. Excuse me. And what's the third step? It starts with an I. This is where you apply even more of your imagination and extrapolation skills.
Interpretation.
Interpretation. Excellent. And this is where you start engaging with the idea of meaning. What could this potentially mean? And I think that an awareness of symbolism, colors, forms, shapes has a big place here. Sometimes cultures that are not the ones that we grow up in use symbolism differently than what we're familiar with. And that's a good opportunity to perhaps even do a little bit of additional research if you want, but also pay close attention, accepting the idea that whoever made this made it on purpose. And the reason it looks the way it does is because they intended it to. You know, color symbolism doesn't always mean the same thing in every culture. In some cultures, green represents abundance uh, because it applies to, you know, green money and growth. In other cultures, yellow implies abundance because it's referencing the sun and the metal gold. And there are going to be different interpretations for things, and that's why we need to be cognizant of, or at least try to guess where this culture might come from that is producing the person who made this thing. You know, where is that? What is their perspective? And I think it's interesting because this part of the process, we are really starting to engage in a conversation with that imaginary avatar we've created of whoever's built this thing. And then what's the fourth step? It starts with an E.
Evaluation.
Evaluation. That's right. That's where we start talking about maybe its value, its worth, and whether or not it's successful. What is interesting to me is a lot of the times people feel very uncomfortable talking about art because they don't think they're qualified. And you'll notice that none of the four tools have anything to do with establishing your credentials. But they do require you to use your big girl words and be able to articulate with precision what you are examining and perhaps even why you are coming to the conclusions that you are. And an example of this is when you go to an art gallery, it is really, there was I want to say Clement Greenberg. I don't know if that was the guy, but there was an art critic who in the 50s said, if you don't get it in the first second or so, it's not worth getting. And I think that that is so completely useless. That is a perspective I don't like at all because it completely removes any sort of responsibility or engagement you might have as a viewer with generating the meaning that's inherent, that the art might present. Um, this process requires you to spend a couple minutes, spend at least 5 minutes actually looking at something as you go through the process of describing it. And then that 5 minutes of time looking at something with intent will give you time for your brain to catch up with where you're at to start appreciating the effort that went into making this thing. And then that leads to the time that you need to start really consciously thinking about why anybody would be bothered with wasting their time making this mess. And it's interesting because when you go through this process, a lot of the times it can completely change your initial perspective from, oh, gag, this is terrible, to, wow, this person has really put a lot of thought into this. Some artists that I've applied this to and I've completely changed how I feel about them. One artist is, oh, can you guys remember who designed the Alien in the Alien movie, like 40 years ago? Do you guys know who I'm talking about?
Is it H.R. Geiger?
Giger, yeah, that's right, yeah. When I first saw some of his stuff, I only saw the movie stuff and made me really uncomfortable, and I hated him. And then I started looking at his stuff more closely, and I started realizing some of the things that he was doing. He uses body discomfort to address issues that should be really uncomfortable for us to think about. And he forces a closer engagement for the people that are interested in that engagement. Some of his work becomes really intensely spiritual If you look at his non-alien design work, it becomes intensely spiritual. And there are things as you look at it, you start realizing what he is trying to express. Um, it gets past that initial sense of revulsion, and you see that there's a lot more going on. And there are other artists that I just dismissed because I thought it was a complete waste of time, like Morris Lewis. All he did was take paint and pour it on canvas, and and then you start, he's a Jewish American. He was using paints that were generally more translucent and paying really a lot of attention to how this pigment settled in the texture of the material he was pouring across. And then there's a big clue in what he was doing. He in the titles, his titles all have to do with like veils. And what he's addressing is this idea that phenomenology started addressing 40 years earlier, which is just how imperfect understanding and appreciation can be when we don't look at things closely. And sometimes veils can be lifted when we apply ourselves to that, getting in touch with our higher order of self, looking for inspiration. And then his stuff started becoming beautiful to me. Barnett Newman is another one, where his canvases are gigantic and there's just a single vertical stroke. And then I heard him talk about his work. Says, what did it look like? What did it feel like when Moses realized that burning bush was God talking to him? What is that moment of inspiration or point of contact so far beyond your immediate understanding you can't grasp it right away? What does that look like physically? And then his paintings really, my interaction with his paintings completely transformed. Henry Moore is another one. There's a lot of these kinds of artists where initially I couldn't stand them, and then Jeffrey Koons is another one. I thought he was just a massive waste of skin, and then I started realizing what he's doing, and I think it was Michael Jackson and Bobo was one of his ceramic works. Just his whole process and everything. He is like a contemporary version of who's the guy that you find out is actually one of the men in black in those movies? Andy, he had white hair. He did the Campbell soup can.
Warhol.
Andy Warhol. Yeah. Jeffrey Koons is like contemporary Andy Warhol. And then I found out Andy Warhol was Rosicrucian, and it completely changed my perspective on what he was trying to do. And I think he's astounding. Betty Saar is another one. When I initially coming across her stuff, I thought, what is going on? And then looking closely at what she was doing, she's now one of my favorite artists ever, in the history of the world. And so but there are other things too, where you look at stuff that looks all flashy and amazing, and then you look at it more closely and you realize this guy's just toying with me. What a waste. And, but most of the time, and there's been some massive disappointments where my initial reaction is, oh, I like this. And then I realize the artist is not going anywhere. They are not taking us on a journey. They're not trying to communicate with us. They're doing something specifically designed to use the money from a grant that they received. It just makes me really irritated. What is so cool is that you get Jason Lanigan and Shireen on campus, and Brian and so many other of these artists. Their work, yeah, you can appreciate it as you walk by, but if you bother to take a minute to start looking at it and turn that minute into 5 minutes, you realize there is a lot going on. And I think that's wonderful. Anyway, let me show you some examples of what other people have done as they have worked on these houses, and we'll talk about some of them. So what I like about this is there's texture on the house, and it looks like it's kind of fun to photograph because there are different things that the shadows will do. And I love this getting really close to it in the grass. We're just going to look at one shot from each of these. I like this. This is a good example. Now, if you took a photo of one of your other works and something like this, it'd be bad. But why does this photo work for this particular assignment?
Looks spooky and dramatic.
Yeah, yeah, and that's exactly what you're doing with this assignment. You're using your skills of photography and your creativity of setting to make something so that we engage with this object in a little bit different way. And I love, there's a bit of irony here where we have this full house here and it looks like it's in a basement or a garage. And I love that. This one I think is so much fun because it looks like it's a barn and it's obviously on a stump, but it kind of riffs off of that early 20th century American regionalism, where you have the almost romanticized farm life imagery with the rising sun and all that stuff. And this is kind of a fun way to reassess that. So you have this little teeny house on a stuff. I think it's a fun house just by itself, and it's fun to photograph. And then this is a really creative setting, and it is really a very nice photograph too. This I think is the same kind of fun thing where you have this house, but it's on obviously cinder blocks, maybe like behind somebody's garage in their backyard or something like that. But I like that kind of thing because there is detail put into this house. It looks like it could be fun to photograph, and then the scale is rather humorous right here. You know, we have this play with expectation of scale. Generally, I don't like these when they're in when your hand is in it. We want to try to photograph this without the hand. But in this case, this person has this painting behind it, and they're holding this up in front of the painting. And I think that that's kind of a funny way to do this as well. I I think that I like this kind of clock tower thing. It would be nice if you guys build something like this to have more texture and elaboration on the form, so it isn't quite so simple. I do like the detail on the clock, and I think that this is kind of funny. I think that this would work better if this was like a pedestal right in front of this, or they had cropped it right down here so that their hand wasn't in it. I think this one turned out really well. I love the attention to detail that this house has. A lot of texture, a lot of stuff going on, just makes it a lot of fun. And then blurring this out and contracting the what's it called, field of focus, gives you this kind of little bit of sense that maybe this is a full size something or another. But I think that this is a really fun image, and I like the way that they did it. This I think is kind of an interesting image because we get this detail on the house. It looks kind of fun, but with the pink right here and the way it's done, it looks almost like a dollhouse. And by setting it on the carpet and taking a photo like this, it makes the dollhouse look like it itself is even a smaller dollhouse than it is. I just think that that's really kind of interesting. But I like this kind of thing where you're photographing it from below, so it kind of looks bigger, but we know it can't be bigger because it's in a playroom. I like this too. I love the fact that they put these the little window box and the tiny plants out there. I thought that that was really cute, and they did a really nice job applying texture to the roof. It makes it look really interesting. And they told me that they did put some books. A couple of these books were very intentionally done, but they thought next time they did it, they would pick the titles a lot more carefully so that the titles had a definite relationship to the house. The reason why Atomic Habits there are there is because they just finished reading that and felt that it was helping them to build something. And so that they thought that book had a lot of good relationship to this. But if they had it to do again, they would have books like Anne of Green Gables or House of Seven Gables, different things like that right here too, which I thought would be kind of interesting. I really like this one. I think that this is one of those kind of cute type of things where you have this little church that's right on the sidewalk, so it looks like people can go in, but then you see right away the scale, and I kind of like that. I think this is a kind of a fun idea to do this. I think that there could be a little bit more detail right here to make it a little bit more enjoyable to photograph. I think um, I like a little bit more paying attention a little bit more to the texture on the roof, maybe doing something more with the windows. I say that because somebody else in the class also did a church without talking to this person, and they actually used uh, little sheets of plastic and drew stained glass windows for the church. And I thought that was a lot of fun to see. I think this one is kind of fun. Building a house so that fits in one of those cloth tubes for kids to crawl through. I think that's really kind of enjoyable. I like a little bit of texture here and here, and I think these kind of windows and a door that's a little bit more three dimensional are so much more interesting than just drawing on it. I think I would like, for somebody else to do something like this, doing a little bit more texture, like either drawing or making siding on the house would be make this a little bit more interesting. But I think that this is a good start. The color is a little bit interesting to me, but I like the fact that this dollhouse is inside of a kid's toy. And this person, they submitted the work module or the work log uh, as their first thing, and that's why we're seeing that. So sorry about that. And this one, they had one of their kids go to pick this up. I think it's kind of fun that they had the little balcony right there. But I think that this would be more fun if they'd actually put a more texture into the door and the windows and made this feel like a little bit more substantial as a house. I think that that would make it work better. This one, I think this is a nice setup, having this against the side of another house. But I think I'm expecting more out of the artists to take this class. This is relatively simple construction paper construction, but I think they could have like glued sticks or something onto the roof to give it more texture, done something more with the windows and doors to make that feel a little bit more dimensional, done something to give this just a little bit more feeling on the sides and stuff. So looking at this, I like the overall design, but it has potential to be more. I think this is kind of a fun look as well. They did do a front porch, but again, I'm hoping for more from the students, like more texture, a little bit more detail and thought going into the actual production of the house, like a door that perhaps even opens. Compare this to the other one where somebody did almost the same design, but had a window box garden and those little miniature plants in it. I think that would make it look a lot better. I think this is a really good start where they used flower petals for a texture. I think putting uh, enough flower petals on there to make it solid so you didn't see underneath it would be a lot more effective. That would make this look and read a lot better. And doing something that applies more texture to the sides. I like the design, but I think having an actual door there that sticks out maybe a little bit and cutting it through the windows, maybe doing a different material for the windows here, maybe drawing these lattices with something over uh, like a lighter paper, like tracing paper for the windows, and then doing more energy or applying more energy to get that side of the wall. But I think that this is a really fun design. I think this is a fun design too, but it starts going to the point where it almost starts disappearing in. So if you're going to be doing a lot of sticks and twigs on the house, I think it would be great to make this more intentional so it actually does read as siding instead of just gluing, twigs onto the side of a structure. And then if that's the case, doing something so that this actually there's a reason to it. I like having the leaves as the roof, but I don't understand why the leaves are dropping down here. And doing this so that maybe there is a photo where it blends into the environment like this, but it might be also interesting to do this in the middle of a parking lot or a road, so you really get that disparity between the natural texture and the urban environment. That might be fun to consider and work with. This is another fun design, but again, I think that this would work better if they used, doing this kind of texture on the roof is fine, but doing about 3 times more so you get a lot of that would be cool. These are post-it notes that they used. Um, Having a lot more of that so we get a lot more texture would be interesting. Doing more texture, intentional construction on this part, maybe again cutting the center out of these so that these yellow squares become yellow window frames and we can actually see behind it, doing something more intentional with the door. This is an interesting start, and doing something like that, applying more than just one color would make that work a lot better, I think. Here's the church that has the stained glass windows. It is a relatively simple construction. What I liked about it is that these windows go all down the sides as well. You can't really see that. And I thought that was a really nice creative touch. Doing something like this, I think it'd be more effective by applying more texture, either visual texture or something like that with the roof, and maybe doing some more work on the siding so it feels like it's more fun to photograph would be fun. Maybe even having doors that you could actually open would be really interesting. But this person they put a light inside, a tea light inside, and took a couple photos of this in the dark, and that ended up looking really good too. This was one of the first of these houses that was turned in, so everybody got to see it at the very beginning. I like this because it was just a really interesting use of resources. And the other 4 photos that they turned in, they turned around a little bit so you could see how they had made it dimensional. And there is texture on the outside and stuff like that. And that door does actually open. And they even put a light inside. And it's just kind of fun. There's little plants inside and everything like that. So this was kind of an enjoyable and creative way to approach the assignment. What did you guys think about any of those? Does that give you more ideas for this kind of stuff, the stuff that you're doing, or make you want to go back and reassess what you're making? So I'll give you some verbal descriptions of examples that were really, really, really bad. One person took a piece of paper and folded it and used that as their house, and they just only showed two sides, and it was obvious that that's all they did to their house, and it was terrible. It was awful. Somebody else didn't bother doing any research online about making like a cardboard or paper house, and their thing fell apart. After the first photo, it was absolutely terrible. Um, One person did make a nice house, but for the 5 shots, it says specifically you don't walk around, don't take different angles of the exact same image. And that's exactly what this person did. They just took 5 photos, same time of day, same setup, everything, just walking around this little house they made. If you're going to use the same setup, do one in the morning and then one when the sun goes down, and do it from different perspectives. Make this really interesting. Be creative about your own work so that it's interesting to you as the artist as well. The shots where you put your camera or your phone inside the fridge and you take a photo of the thing right when you open the door or something like that. Those kinds of shots are always really interesting. Yes, Polly.
I'm trying to think what to do with the light right now. Like I want it to have a light source on the inside, but I'm not sure how I can access it to turn it on and turn it off. I'm thinking maybe I shouldn't have the bottom.
Well, I think you could do a couple different things. Either make it so that it doesn't have a bottom and you set it down, or the bottom is removable, or that the roof is removable. Those are all good things. But the easiest thing for a light is I would recommend going to a place like Dollar Tree and just getting the tea lights that they have, the battery powered tea lights. For $1.25, you get 4 of those, and that makes it. I mean, it's a really good scale for this kind of thing.
So just kind of turn it on and until the battery runs out, take all my
Yeah,
pictures.
it may take 10 hours for the battery to run out, something like that. They last pretty long. But
Thank you.
that's one thing. One person did burn their house, and thankfully that was the last photo. Um, Somebody else, I think their parents were helping them clean up, didn't understand what they were seeing and threw it away. So yeah, Brittany, that's exactly how I felt. But some and you can use a real candle inside. That might be interesting too. But I would recommend against that. I would probably go with the tea lights instead. And doing something where everything is attached, but you can hinge the roof. That way you can put the lights inside and then tilt the roof back and everything looks good. One person, I thought this was really cool. They found Dollar Tree. Occasionally, you can get a really small halogen style light that is really bright, and they found something like that, and put they made like a chimney and used just like pillow batting, that cotton you get out of pillows, and made that as kind of smoke out of a chimney, and put a really bright light like that inside where it was shielded, and the only place that the light could go was into that cotton batting, and it looked like, I don't know, it looked amazing. It looked like a miniature house where you have this really bright smoke just going off into the night. That ended up looking really cool. But there's lots of different kinds of different lighting effects that you can get. Um, I've had people also use a very low light, go outside and just set up their phone so their phone had like a 30-second exposure to get all the light that it needed. That was really interesting because it had a very grainy effect and it ended up looking fantastic. I've also had people use um, sepia tone or that blue tint tone so it looks antique, pass it through a filter so it looked like it was taken in the 19th century or something. Um, other people have done like even short little 2-second films where they set their house next to running water, so you get the sound of the water going by. But there's lots of really interesting things you can do. I would recommend against taking photos with pets, children, and dramatic destruction until you've already taken several other photos that you know you can use. I do like the kaiju toddler, where you have the house gets knocked over by a little rampaging kid. That's always a fun one to see too. So does this help with everybody? All right. Do you
Yeah,
guys have
thank
any? You're welcome. Do you guys have any questions about any other part of this last week's assignments? Any questions on the quiz? One of the things that I want to reiterate, and I have to do this quite a bit, is that since we don't meet multiple times a week, this is the only time we have to get together. I need you to understand that if at any point you don't get full points for whatever it is you turn in, look at the comments that I make and reassess, reevaluate, and then resubmit the assignment. A couple of people have missed a couple points on quizzes. That is never a big deal. Look at it, reevaluate what's going on, and then when you resubmit the quiz, you do have to take the entire thing over again. I can't um, get Canvas to allow you to edit just a single answer, but you can retake the quiz as many times as you need to until you get a perfect score. That does not hurt my feelings at all. So there's really no reason you shouldn't be getting perfect scores on any of the quizzes or any of the other assignments either. You can always say, look at what I've said, add to whatever it is you're doing, rephoto your future assignment, whatever it is you need to do to get additional points. This will especially come in handy when we start moving forward with things like the annotated bibliography, for example, about your artist, or the PowerPoint presentation. A lot of the times people will forget one or two things. Not a big deal. You just rework it and turn in the update. You know, that again, it does not bend my nose out of shape whatsoever. All right, I wanted to just show a couple more examples of this thing, and these are ones that are in the assignment itself that you guys can see, just to hopefully give you some good ideas. I love how the person did this and kind of aged that roof a little bit just by applying things like a little bit of dirt here and there. I think in this they just maybe this was even just acrylic paint to make it look like it started rusting, and that is just fine. I love that when people apply just a little bit of paint, just do a little bit to it so that it looks a lot more fun to photograph. This one is one of my favorites. Remember that other image that we saw where the person did blue bricks on the side of their building? This one, it looks to me like it is a printer roller from a place like Michael's or Hobby Lobby that somebody could use just for like scrapbooking or even working with the polymer clay, and they just used a print pad to get those kind of bricks on there. Even something like that, I think is a lot of fun. And then they cut out darker paper and that they painted for the frames, and then put tracing paper behind each of the windows, and that's fun. And I love how they made this whole visual texture look as they painted these boards to board up the different windows. This is a great example. And I don't remember what the roof was on this. I think they may have used the inside of corrugated cardboard and then just glued other texture on it to make it look like shingles over on top of the roof, and it ended up being fantastic. And this is a fun texture where they actually wove things together. This is kind of it looks to me like they used hanging file folders and just cut it in strips to get that siding. I think that this, for that green siding, I think this would be fun if they continued it up all the way and then cut the window out of it so you could actually see through. I think that'd be a really fun way to deal with it. And this is an example where the person put a tiny flashlight inside of the house. In this case, I think this would have been more effective if they used something that was a lot more opaque for everything other than the windows. So it's only the windows that glowed. But it's a fun start, definitely. All right. Any questions or observations or last minute advice about the picking up kits or anything like that? Brittany, you said that the poster board was behind one of the one of the shelves to the right of where the kits were, right? Okay. And then if you're staying inside the room, I think you said that the signing sheet was to the left of the door.
It's you walk forward and there's like this little kind of alcove hallway to the right.
Okay.
It's on the whiteboard.
Oh, okay. The where the teacher will write instructions and stuff like that.
Yes.
Okay. Right. So anybody going back up on campus to get their poster board, please keep an eye out for that and look for it. And then I think in a couple of days after everybody's done the best they can, I'll get a list of everybody who did not find that again, and then tell Shireen that who picked up the kits that did not find that signing sheet. But if you're not going to go back up on campus, again, that poster board is $1.25 at Dollar Tree. And it really, I felt so betrayed when they raised their prices, because, and I can kind of understand why they aren't changing the title of the name of the stores, but still, it kind of hurts a little. If it's everything's $1.25, then it should be the $1.25 tree, but it doesn't have the same ring to it, does it? Oh well. Thank you, Polly. I appreciate that. Oh, and I missed the cutoff. In my home, I can't make dad jokes after 8:30, and I'm 20 minutes past my deadline. So, Polly, I appreciate it even more. One thing I want everybody to really be mindful of is that the kit is not the only thing that you can use. Please keep an eye out for, when you go out for walks, when you look in the junk drawer for things that you can use for future projects. People have used everything, and I'm not kidding about this, from noodles and dried seaweed to bark and grass that they picked up as they were walking outside, to bubble gum, of course, string and glue. Those are always really good. Gorilla glue is great. Hot glue is awesome, but other textures will include things like beads and puffballs that person has made themselves, little bits of yarn, cut up cardboard. There's lots of different things that you can use for texture. And as we go through this class, we'll talk about, we have a whole section that is just on applying texture to things. So there's a lot of opportunity for that. People have made crocheted and woven things for the skin project, woven paper as well as woven cloth, crocheting string, winding fabric. One person took, I think it was just like plastic garbage bags, and made areas with hot glue on the plastic garbage bag that was just strong enough so it didn't melt. And they made these things like this that just look like woven hot glue, and they peeled that up and used that as a texture, which is fantastic. And they actually used it as a structural component for one of the things they made. So there's lots of different kinds of things that can be done. Somebody else would, in one of the wrapping projects, what they did was they wrapped it with plastic wrap used a blow dryer to melt it and shrink it down. So they had these, looked like torn holes in it that they just melted with the hair dryer, spray painted it, wrapped it again, did the same process, did that process multiple times. And when they got all done, it looked like something out of a gothic horror novel with melted paint and fused spider webbing and all this kind of stuff. It was one of the most fantastic textures I'd ever seen. So be mindful of what possibly you could do in the future as we move forward with these different projects. Because the last project you're going to do, you're going to pull out all the stops, make something that has fantastic color and fantastic texture on it, and just put as much as you can into it. All righty, folks. That brings us to the end of today's fantabulous lecture that everybody was waiting anxiously for all week long. And I hope you have an absolutely wonderful week and weekend. Before we part ways, any final thoughts or questions? All right. For full credit for this, I want you to make sure that you watch that short little 1.5-minute video that I've attached to this as well. And again, as always, 5 things that you found out or learned or observed during the course of the video that we're making together. I hope you guys, again,
Thank
have a
you.
wonderful week and weekend. And I look forward to seeing y'all next Wednesday.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.